Hello, I'm Steven Olson, and welcome to Spirit Basics, the show for everyone, from the beginner to the avid connoisseur of fine spirits.
And I'm Jennifer Allan. Today's show is all about high-proof alcohol. Now, we've all heard stories about people who have consumed high-proof alcohol, but really, it's not something that we should fool around with.
Don't ever fool around with this stuff. This can be very, very dangerous. And I have to say, we've never talked about alcoholic levels on this show because we preach moderate consumption. And the spirits that we've been teaching you about are all diluted down for us to a reasonable level, and then we make cocktails out of them and so forth. So here's the deal. Overproof is okay. We'll talk about that. High proof, very dangerous. Don't ever drink this straight. It can kill you. It's that simple. We're talking 90 to 95% alcohol. Now, the purpose of distillation in the first place is to remove methanol and bad alcohols to create a quality spirit. That's what this is all about, okay? Overproof is okay because that's just a higher alcohol spirit, but it must be diluted down, and you're supposed to know that.
Tell us what proof is.
Good question. Alcoholic strength is measured in percent of alcohol. Proof is double the percent. It all comes from an old process of guaranteeing the strength of alcohol, calling it proof with gunpowder. Let me put it this way. Overproof is higher than the accepted norm for that category. 151 rum is much higher than the 70 to 80 that rum normally is.
So even though they're both rums, we really shouldn't substitute an overproof rum for another one in a cocktail?
Oh, absolutely not. Not unless the recipe calls for it, and if it does, it's because it's already been diluted. I like to drink small batch bourbons. When I do, I know that they can be 107, 120. I know that I can drink it neat, but I can put a little water in it and drink it straight.
How long has high-proof alcohol been around for?
As long as alcohol has been around. The Moors we talked about originally, making alcohol for makeup, steeping herbs and spices. We're talking medicinal purposes, topical applications, gunpowder, even the illegal stills for the moonshiners, going all the way back to the beginning of whiskeys and all types of spirits. You're supposed to know that you dilute it yourself. Bathtub gin was exactly that. Whiskey was always shipped originally at proof, and because of aging in barrels, it changed, but the alcohol evaporated. It got lower proof. And even still, we would add water to it to make it better and safer. And we're talking about a distillation that goes to 50, maybe 70% on the high end, not 95% like high proof.
Well, for more on moonshining and bootlegging, we turn to our master mixologist, Dale Degroff.
Hooch, Mountain Dew, White Lightning, White Mule, corn whiskey. Moonshining and bootlegging, a very colorful part of our history. Moonshining, making corn whiskey by the light of the moon. The souped up cars that these guys used to use to fill up and deliver their moonshine in false gas tanks underneath that they souped up so they could outrace the revenue agents were the beginning of NASCAR down in the lower 48, as a matter of fact. Junior Johnstone, one of the great early drivers, cut his chops as a moonshine driver. Whoa, yeah. Bootlegging, another real interesting part of American history. Captain Bill McCoy was one of the most successful bootleggers. He brought in the real deal, Scotch from Scotland, gin from London. And people sought after his product, and as a matter of fact, one of our great expressions came from those days. They would say, "Is that the real McCoy?" Wondering if it was Captain Bill McCoy's stuff, because he had the good stuff. The saloons were wide open during Prohibition. I mean, they were allowed to stay open and serve 3.2 beer, which they did, but of course they also served spirits. And the way they did it was documented in a wonderful book called The Real Story of Bootlegging by Anonymous, because it was written during Prohibition. And he tells about the dog in the basement. The dog in the basement, what happened was they would cut a trap door right in the floor of the bar where the bartender stands. And underneath that trap door in the basement, there was a guy sitting on a case, one case of gin, assorted whiskey, whatever. And up top there was the bartender. And when the regulars came in, underneath the lip of the bar, he had a glass pitcher with some whiskey or some gin in it. And so when a regular came in, he'd give him a mixer and a little shot of whiskey or gin. Now, if somebody came in who they didn't know, or they were a little bit suspicious about, or if a revenue agent jumped over that bar to try to bust them, he would take the glass pitcher and smash it on the top of that trap door in the floor, which would indicate to the dog in the basement that he had to crack all those bottles open. Because the only way you could prosecute during Prohibition, get this, was to have a closed container of alcohol. That's how it worked. You could have alcohol all over the floor, but you couldn't prosecute unless you had a closed container. It was such a joke. The whole thing was such a big mistake that they think they could actually really get away with taking away from us something that was so, away from the American people, that is, something that was so, so important. Whoa, maybe I'll just hold off a minute and wait until I mix this with something else before I try it.
Up next, we'll talk about how higher proof alcohol is made.
And our Spirit Insiders, Morgen and Scott, will show us what they learned about higher proof alcohol. That's when Spirit Basics returns. Welcome back to Spirit Basics. Right now we're going to talk about how high-proof alcohol is made. Now, Stephen, what are some of the common brands or alcohol levels that might be considered high-proof?
Well, let's first talk about overproof. An obvious one, I think, is Bacardi 151. What I would say is know what the norms are and know how to find it on the label. Every single label on a spirit bottle, by law, must have the alcoholic percent. Some of them even say the proof, which again is twice as much, okay? Now, in the case of, say, high proof or Everclear, it actually says on the label that it not only is it flammable, but don't drink it unless you mix it with unalcoholic beverages. I mean, this is neutral grain spirit, and it's like vodka in that it's neutral grain spirit, but the difference is that vodka is diluted back down for us to a reasonable level.
What process do they use to get the alcohol level so high?
It's really very similar to other alcohols, except for it's not artisanal. We're not removing heads and tails, and it takes a number of distillations usually to get it up to that high level. We want a concentrated level of ethanol, which we get from grain alcohol. I mean, that's really how it works. Now, understand, we do have a purpose for these, but it's usually used for infusing, for maceration. We've talked about this with flavoring. We're extracting flavors out of herbs, out of fruits, out of spices, and we're maybe using them in aromatized wines and maybe fortifying aromatized wines, maybe using them in liqueurs. But understand that we're always diluting it back. The average liqueur that's using this to steep flavors is still going to be only maybe 20% alcohol up to 40%, with a couple going up to 50 on the outside.
Well, for more on how high-proof alcohol is made, we turn to our Spirit Guide.
When we're talking about high-proof alcohol here, we're talking about something that is made exactly the same way as fuel, okay? Fuel, right? I mean, if I'm gonna make something for a fuel, I wouldn't cut out the methanol. That's the gnarly stuff in the heads or the stinky stuff in the tails, because it's gonna be consumed as a fuel, right? So high-proof alcohol, as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, the methanol is still in it. The methanol will kill you. You don't drink this stuff. Yeah, I know. Some of us have had our moments of foolishness where we blended it down with a whole bunch of Kool-Aid or whatever, and best forgotten, in fact, easy to forget because we forgot later on that night what we had done. Never do that again. Bad for you. High-proof alcohol, as far as I'm concerned, should be avoided because the methanol's still there. Not so overproof. Now, simply being overproof doesn't mean they've left methanol in there. It simply means they didn't cut it back much with water. Bacardi 151, that is definitely overproof rum. It's not something to trifle with. Be very careful with. It's great for cooking with. It's great for infusions and all that stuff. But it is also a cleanly made spirit that won't kill you if you exercise the proper caution. Wray and Nephew, the overproof 124 from Jamaica. It's a fantastic white rum, a real mind-boggling rum. And yeah, you want to be very careful how much of that stuff you drink, but I think it's a fantastic rum and a flavor you would only get at that sort of alcoholic level.
Well, now that we've taken a look at the history, origins, and the process behind making higher proof, it's time for an inside look.
Our Spirit Insiders, Morgen and Scott, ventured out to learn more about higher proof alcohol.
Thanks, Steve and Jennifer. I'm here at Willow Park Wines and Spirits, where I've managed to steal one of their spirit experts. Now, Michael, we're up here talking about high proof and overproof. but we have all of this fruit in front of us. Why?
Well, I think one of the safer ways to use the overproofs or the rectified spirits is to make liqueurs out of them. Drinking a 96% alcohol on its own doesn't always taste the best, and the result in the morning isn't always the nicest.
A little scary.
A little scary for sure. So with the fruits and the spicing and vanilla beans and different things, we can actually make our own liqueurs to enjoy ourselves, and it's fun in the process, and it's an interesting way to use these flavorings.
So you can actually make your own liqueurs.
You can make your own liqueur very
Isn't that a
easily.
little bit of a tough thing to do?
Well, it's not as tough as you would think it would be. It's actually quite easy. All you need is some fruit, some rectified spirit, and it doesn't even have to be rectified spirit. You could use an overproof rum, you could use cognac. Depending on what your base is dependent on the amount of sweetness or sugar that you'll add to it.
Okay, so you're talking about adding all these things in different places. How exactly do you do it?
Well, making a liqueur, there's a few different steps to it. First thing you need to do is get a mason jar, put some fruit in there. It doesn't have to be fruit. You could use cinnamon sticks. You could use anything, whatever liqueur you want to make.
you want to get out of it.
Throw it into the jar, pour the rectified spirit on it, and let it sit.
Is it when it's steeping and you're getting the sugars from all your different fruits or anything that you have in there? Is that actually bringing the alcohol level down a little bit, or are you going to add some water to it?
It will bring the alcohol down. You could add water at this point. I like to let my flavorings steep with the pure spirit. And after it's steeped and I get the intensity flavor that I'm looking for, then I strain it off, and then you have the spirit. Then I'll add sugar to it because if you're using a rectified spirit, you're always going to have to add sugar probably. And that's just going to get rid of some of that bitterness in there. And then you taste it. And it's all about tasting and playing. And I think the more you experiment, the more fun you get.
You just get to taste all
It
the time.
totally does.
Okay, just for a ballpark figure, how long would you leave the fruit in there before you would start to taste it?
Fruit is about 3 weeks, and then about 3 weeks of aging.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Steve, Jennifer, there are some great ideas on how to enjoy high-proof and overproof spirits safely. Back to you guys.
Up next, we continue our look into the spirit world with a lesson on how to drink higher proof alcohol and how to use it in some of your favorite cocktails when Spirit Basics returns.
Spirit Basics is brought to you in part by Willow Park Wines and Spirits.
Welcome back to Spirit Basics, the show for everyone who wants to learn more about the world's greatest cocktails. Let's take a minute and talk about how to enjoy higher proof and overproof spirits.
Now, Stephen, you mentioned earlier that because of the nature of higher proof alcohol, you don't want to drink it straight. But can you tell us how we might want to use it?
Can I just say one more time on this show, Everclear and the spirits like it are very dangerous, and you should never drink it straight. There are warning labels on the bottle telling you not to, that you have to mix it with a non-alcohol beverage.
So what can we mix it with then?
Okay, personally I would never consume it in a cocktail, but if you must, I would say you make a big punch. You're having a party, you steep fruits in it, you throw in tropical fruits, oranges, pineapples, and so forth, a lot of soda, a lot of fruit juice, 10 to 1, and then maybe.
Well, for more on how to drink higher proof alcohol, we turn to our spirit advisor.
All right. High proof alcohol, not for drinking. Let me reiterate, not for drinking. It's for engines, cars, rockets, not for drinking. This, not high proof alcohol. This is overproof alcohol, whole different animal. This is 124, Ray and Nephew, overproof rum, 124. It's pretty neat stuff, and you'll notice I've got a cube in there. Yes, an ice cube. Why? Because at 124, I don't want this stuff to be room temperature. It's going to taste pretty hot at that temperature, so I want to cool it off, and maybe I'm just going to dilute it the tiniest ever so bit. And indeed, if I were to order this in a Jamaican bar, I'll walk in, ask for my Wray and Nephew, which is what a lot of people do there, and they'll drop the glass of Wray and Nephew down, and they'll also bring me probably a cola or a soda or a glass of water or a beer or all of those. And they're assuming that I'm not gonna like pour one of those into my drink. They're assuming I'm going to drink this neat, maybe with a cube in it as I've done, but that I'll have this drink on the side because that can dilute my bloodstream as opposed to diluting the drink. Because truthfully, 124, a little bit goes a long ways. The issue would be, however, that somebody obviously thought 124 was a pretty neat proof level for this drink. So they didn't dilute it down to 70 or 80 as most drinks would be. They assumed you want to drink it this way because it has flavor it wouldn't otherwise have. And you know what? It does.
Our master mixologist, King Cocktail Dale Degroff, joins us now with a lesson on how to make a cocktail with overproof alcohol.
I'm going to drop the lighthearted attitude for just a minute here and talk about alcohol in a little more serious vein, because serving alcoholic beverages is a pretty serious business because it affects the human body in very, very definite ways. And the spirits I'm going to be using in this next drink, I'm going to be using rum, but I'm using an overproof rum, which is 151. Now, when I say proof, that means that the percentage of alcohol, say a 40% alcohol spirit would be 80 proof, so you just double the percentage of alcohol to arrive at the proof. So this is 150 proof, so it's very, very high in alcohol. This is Everclear. It's almost pure alcohol. It's 190 proof. I wouldn't use this in spirit drinks ever. This is really good for infusing flavors into alcohol, fruits, spices, whatever, and then you bring the proof down and use that as if you wanted to make liqueurs at home or things like that, that's what you would use it for. It's really irresponsible to use this as a base for a cocktail. 150 rum is often 151 rum is often used as a float or as an additional. Remember I talked about how rums like to be together in the glass? I'm going to make a simple drink here that's just a real punchy drink and very easy to make, and it's a build. I'm not even going to shake it. I'm going to pour and I'm going to stir, and the two spirits used in equal parts are an overproof rum and a coconut rum. And to that overproof rum and that coconut rum, I'm going to add pineapple juice, which is a great rum combo, and a coconut, wonderful match for coconut, and cranberry juice. And I'm going to take some fresh fruit here, and I'm going to garnish it with oranges, lemons, limes. Pineapple would be lovely, and a cherry. But back to the discussion about alcohol. Alcohol doesn't really affect the human body until it gets in your blood. But once it gets in your blood, you really need to, that's when it starts to affect the way you act. And to slow down the alcohol getting to your blood is what we try to do when we have a party. That's why we serve hors d'oeuvres. That's why you see a drinker at the bar who has his martini, there's a glass of water next to it. Because if you drink water as you drink your martini, you're slowing down the absorption because you're adding water to your stomach along with the alcohol. If you put food in your stomach, it's going to slow down the absorption of the alcohol into your blood. That's a good thing, because the slower your blood, and if you drink slowly, drinking quickly over a short period of time is a very, very bad idea. Anyway, isn't that pretty? It's got a little high proof alcohol in it, but I brought the proof way, way down by adding fruit juices, a lower proof flavored rum. So when you're using these spirits that have high proof, be very careful because they can be dangerous. We don't want that. Steve, Jennifer?
After the break, we head into the kitchen to see if you can cook with higher proof alcohol. That's when Spirit Basics returns. Welcome back to Spirit Basics. As you can see, we're in the kitchen and we're joined by our Spirit Chef, Chef Allan. Great to see you again.
It's great to be back in the kitchen.
Now, this is the episode that I've been waiting a very long time for, and that's because we finally have two really yummy desserts. Now, when I think of using overproof alcohol, these aren't the desserts that would quickly jump to my mind.
No, normally you'd think about something warm or hot, and here though, we've got two perfect ways to use overproof rum, particularly because we're actually looking for a little bit, in addition to the rum taste, some alcohol taste. So really what we've got is some cocktails in a pan here, and a really great, nice way to use the alcohol.
So tell us what these desserts are and what's in them.
Okay, well the first dessert we have here is a matrimonial square, which is really a date square. And in here we've got all sorts of comforty things, some dark sugar, some oatmeal, some cinnamon, the dates, and the overproof rum. So really what we've got is almost kind of like a rum toddy in a pan. And what we're looking for here is, because the dates are so sweet, is when we get that taste in our mouths of all these other things, we're actually going to get a taste of the alcohol from the overproof rum.
Well, and this looks like a citrus pie, and obviously the overproof rum and the citrus, they go in hand.
Absolutely. Again, what we learned in the cocktail segment of the show, here we have a Cross Creek key lime pie, and key limes are small, really intensely flavored tart limes. Absolutely perfect with rum. And again, we're using some condensed milk in this, very, very sweet, and so it comes through that we're going to get a little taste of the alcohol in here. So if you're going to be really naughty, better to be double naughty and have the sweetness and the alcohol.
So tell us, if we're using overproof rum, does that mean that the rum flavor is better than just a regular dark rum?
No, you're going to get the same flavor. What you're looking for with overproof spirits is the alcohol. The recipes that you'll see with these are because you actually want the alcohol. You're not evaporating it off usually, and you want a little bit of a residue there. Otherwise, just use regular rum. Like for example, when we glazed those ribs in the show earlier with some rum, it'd be a waste to use overproof rum, too expensive. You just want to get the rum taste, use regular rum.
Okay. Well, what are some other of the classic examples using overproof rum?
Well, again, hot desserts, things like an English pudding where you might put some brandy or some of this overproof rum on the pudding. Caramel sauces, desserts like that, where you're actually, in some cases, you're actually lighting them on fire. You want that alcohol for that purpose.
And if you are going to be lighting them on fire, you have to be very, very careful. It's probably almost better to leave it to the professionals.
Right, and it's not just these overproof products that you're going to be lighting. Things like brandy and other spirits we've used, and yes, be very, very careful.
Okay, well, if you'd like to try these dishes at home, all you have to do is log on to the website for the recipes. Over to you now, Stephen.
Thanks, Jen. Those are some very interesting recipes. And that's it for this edition of Spirit Basics, but make sure and join us on our next episode when we explore the mystical world of absinthe. Excuse me, I'm just going to put a little water in my overproof bourbon. I'm Steven Olson. For Jennifer Allen and everyone here at Spirit Basics, we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Special thanks to Willow Park Wine and Spirits, whose dedication to providing knowledge, awareness, and service to their customers has made this show possible.